and welcome to Rave History. The first real knowledge, we could call it esoteric knowledge, the first real esoteric knowledge about the nature of a being was introduced by the Hindu Brahmins. It was the seven chakra system, the seven-centered being. And the seven-centered being is what our history is made up of. That is, that seven chakra being going all the way back to the very beginnings, the pre-beginnings of civilization, going back, in fact, a couple of 100,000 years, that it was the seven-centered being that dominated this plane. It was the seven-centered being that built the civilizations of this planet. And then, in 1781, an extraordinary thing took place. It was coincidental with Sir William Herschel's discovery of the planet Uranus. But in 1781, a new mutation began to emerge on this plane. The mutation that we call the nine-centered being. The mutation that we call Homo sapien intransitus, us, who we are, in fact. The great dilemma for those of us who live on this plane today is, in a sense, not being aware of our history. We are not, indeed, seven-centered beings at all. We are not like our recent ancestors. The seven-centered being operated through a Saturnian body. Their life was fundamentally shorter than ours. The midpoint of their life was about 15 years of age. They were designed to live fast and hard and burn out early. In 1781, with the discovery of Uranus, the Uranian body, the nine-centered vehicle, began to emerge. This nine-centered vehicle has a different trajectory. We have a much longer lifespan, a lifespan built on the 84-year cycle of Uranus. And that extended lifespan is about the development of our unique capacities in terms of one thing and one thing only, that is cognition. We, nine-centered beings, are very different from the seven-centered beings in the way we are intended to be here on this plane. For the seven-centered being, our ancestors, everything was strategic. It was about being able to secure themselves against all the threats that they perceived were around them. For the nine-centered being, everything about our way of life is meant to be determined not by our need for survival and to defend ourselves, but by our very capacity to be able to nurture and perfect and to flower in our consciousness. In 1781, an enormous transition began to take place. A transition that is, in a sense, the beginning of an end, that is the beginning of the end of the process of Homo sapien. In other words, we are coming to the finality of the potential of our development. In 1781, when we moved to the nine-centered being, we also moved to something else. We move to the possibility of being the midwife to the future. It is through us that the next variation of our species is going to emerge. Our history, our unique history, began in 1781. It is only now that we are beginning to awaken to what is our essential nature, that essential nature that is expressed in human design. That through the mechanics of human design, that one is able, as a nine-centered being, unlike our predecessors, to be able to operate on this plane successfully in a totally different way, and to be able to operate at a level of cognition that we have never been able, as a species, to experience before. 1781, the beginning of a whole new process.